Hello, and welcome to Gamic. I'm your host, Huck Finn. Now, I love jelly beans. By the time I finish this container, this will be the third one I would have eaten this year. But I've noticed a disturbing trend where people like to compare the likelihood of a negative event to getting a jelly bean. And when they do this, they always make some sort of ridiculous analogy like, imagine you have 1,000,000 jelly beans, and I was going to give you $1 million per bean that you ate, and only one of them would kill you. How many jelly beans would you eat? And when you put it in terms like that, $1 million for a 1 in a million chance of eating a deadly jelly bean. It's extremely unrealistic, and it sets up a bad comparison when you're trying to compare it to something that could actually happen, like, let's say, dying in a plane crash, or being struck by lightning, or contracting some deadly virus that's floating around in the air that, could be unnamed for who knows what, right? Let's just say that there is some virus out there that could do something like that. And so when you put it into that perspective, you're putting the likelihood of it into, an actual percentage, but the incentive to do such is also way over-exaggerated. So if you were to take something like 1 in a billion jelly beans would kill you, and I'm going to give you $1 million per jelly bean, people are like, well, I have a 1 in a billion chance. I would just sit there and eat jelly beans until I, hopefully found the one that would kill me, right? And I don't like that idea. And just to kind of put this into perspective, right, 1 in a billion jelly beans, okay, if you were to eat 1 jelly bean per minute, okay, 1 jelly bean per minute, you'd eat 525,600 jelly beans in a year. Now, that's if you were able to eat 1 jelly bean per minute, okay? Now, if you consider the fact that the average person spends a third of their life in bed, and they need to have time to do other things like shower or eat other foods or drive or have sex or, do anything else, right? The ability to eat 1 jelly bean per minute is extremely unlikely. But if you were able to do that, over the course of 100 years, you would only be able to eat 52 million jelly beans. And that's if you ate 1 jelly bean every minute for 100 years. So when you think about how many jelly beans you'd have to eat in an average lifetime, let's say somebody made you this offer when you were 18 years old and you were expecting to live to be 78 years old. So you have 60 years to try and eat these jelly beans, and you also need to count into, the fact of how much time you're going to spend sleeping and eating other foods and everything like that. You'd have to eat probably more than 2 jelly beans per minute, which would be 1 jelly bean every 30 seconds. And if you were to eat 2 jelly beans a minute for even 10 hours a day, that would be 4,800 calories, because each jelly bean is about 4 calories. That'd be 4,800 calories in just jelly beans alone. So even if you didn't get the deadly jelly bean, you'd have some other issues to deal with from eating that many jelly beans in order to try and get the money. And if you were to, put this into perspective as well, let's say you were to get paid, rather than $1 million a jelly bean, you get 10 cents a jelly bean, but you were able to eat 525,600 jelly beans in a year, you'd still make $52,000 a year doing nothing but eating jelly beans, which wouldn't be too bad. So when you start to reduce the number of jelly beans from, let's say, 1 billion to 1 million, which is 1/1000th, then you have to increase the amount that you pay somebody in order to, make the incentive equal, right? So instead of paying them a dime per jelly bean, you have to give them a $10 bill per jelly bean, right? So you don't necessarily get a really good comparison. Even $10 a jelly bean wouldn't be too bad, right? So this is part of where the analogy falls apart, because the incentive to eat this number of jelly beans is super large, and the actual potential is pretty limited. So let's put this into a different perspective. Let's say there are only 100,000 jelly beans, and of those 100,000 jelly beans, 10,000 of them are infected beans or potentially dangerous, or whatever you want to call them. And out of those 10,000 that are potentially dangerous, 200 of them are deadly. Okay, they will kill you. So the infected beans could just kind of make you a little sick, all the way up to needing severe hospitalization and lifetime medical complications that extend beyond the initial issue that you have of just the first jelly bean. So that's the likelihood, those are the numbers, those are statistics of you getting one of these bad beans. Now, here's the incentive to eat the jelly bean. There is none. Crazy concept, right? There's no incentive to eat these jelly beans. There's so little incentive to eat these jelly beans that they're actually flavorless. Now, they are calorie-less, okay? So, that's a good thing. No calorie jelly beans, but they also have absolutely no flavor. And I'm not going to give you anything to eat them, right? You just eat them if you feel like eating them, and take the chance of getting one of the 200 deadly jelly beans out of the 100,000 jelly beans that there are, okay? But I'm not going to give you anything for it. You're not even going to get to enjoy them, right? Now, here's the real kicker. Imagine that there's the possibility that you could wind up getting these jelly beans somehow and consuming them without you even realizing it. Let's say there's some chef that makes food, right? Or a waiter, or let's say somebody just in a random spot can just magically get a jelly bean in your mouth and you consume it without even realizing it, because again, they're flavorless, right? So you wouldn't know that you ate it, right? So that kind of changes the idea a little bit, because now you don't even have the choice about eating these jelly beans, right? Somebody else could, in theory, get one of these jelly beans into your mouth and force you to eat it. And if you get one of the 200 deadly jelly beans, you die, right? Now, if I was to tell you that if you wanted to, right, to help kind of like reduce your chances of getting one of these random deadly jelly beans in your mouth, you could like cover your mouth, right, all the time, right, when you're around other people that may be trying to get these deadly jelly beans into your mouth, okay? Now, I know that there are people that are out there that are going to say, well, it would be uncomfortable and everything like that, but there's really not actually a drawback to covering your mouth to keep these deadly jelly beans from getting in. And there are some people that are going to be out there and say, well, if you wear this covering over your mouth, then you can't get oxygen, right? But jelly beans, one of the ingredients in jelly beans is water, and water consists of 2 oxygen atoms and 1 hydrogen atom. So the particles that make up like air are considerably smaller than the jelly beans, right? So it's kind of counterintuitive to say that this facial covering is going to prevent air from getting in, but it won't stop the jelly beans. That doesn't make any sense, right? If it can stop the jelly beans, that's what you're looking for, and it won't stop the flow of air, okay? So that argument doesn't really work, so we're just going to kind of ignore that, right? There's no drawback to wearing a facial covering to keep these jelly beans, right? Especially, can you imagine a jelly bean assassin that's like using a blowgun to like shoot these flavorless jelly beans into people's mouths and kill them, right? Or possibly kill them. They don't even know if they may not know what jelly bean that they're shooting into people, right? It's crazy. So this is just kind of, again, using the jelly bean analogy, right? And then what if I were to tell you that you could get a shot in your arm that even if you got one of the 200 deadly jelly beans, it might actually keep you from dying of the deadly jelly bean. Wouldn't that be awesome, right? Like, so that way, when the crazy jelly bean assassin is going around shooting these flavorless jelly beans into people's mouths and they're swallowing them without even noticing it, even if that happens, you've reduced your chances of dying from this deadly jelly bean. Seems pretty, like, that would make a lot of sense, right? Thinking about it. Okay. And if you got one of the 10,000 just infected jelly beans, you might not even notice that you get sick, right? And here's the other part of it, right? You don't realize that you might be one of the deadly jelly bean assassins, right? That you could be shooting deadly jelly beans into other people's mouths and they're swallowing it and everything, and you don't even know it, right? But by wearing a facial covering and getting this shot, you reduce the chances of you being the deadly jelly bean assassin. Crazy, right? It's a crazy concept. Now, I'm going to talk about this random, unnamed, right, like, potentially deadly virus, right, that I've heard about. And the population in the United States currently, as of like 5 minutes before I started to film this, the population in the United States is 328 million, according to the Census Bureau, the information that they have. Okay? And according to the CDC, again, right, latest numbers that I was able to get from the CDC, some unnamed virus, right, has a total of 36,720,973 cases of unnamed virus, okay? Which, when you look at it, when you put those numbers into perspective, that's over 10% of the population, right? Because 10% of the population would be 32 million, and this is 36 million, right? So the number of unnamed virus victims is actually greater than 10%, 1 in 10. So when you think about it in the jelly bean analogy that I gave you, 100,000 jelly beans, 10,000 jelly beans is 10%, right? So that's one number to just throw out there. And the total number of deaths from unnamed virus is 619,564, according to the CDC, right? These are CDC numbers. I'm not going to argue the validity of them or anything like that. So that's roughly 2%. It's not quite, but getting those decimal points down is, rough. It's rough math, and I want to make numbers easy. So 10% of the population has suffered from unknown virus, and roughly 2% of the people that have gotten unnamed virus have died from unnamed virus. So when you start putting it into a jelly bean analogy and everything like that, and you start thinking about these things, it does beg the question, why wouldn't you want to get the vaccine that could keep you from dying from this virus and help keep you from becoming a deadly jelly bean assassin, right? Why wouldn't you want to do that? I mean, like, duh. And the drawback of wearing a facial covering to keep you from becoming a deadly jelly bean assassin or being the victim of a deadly jelly bean assassin, and there's no drawbacks to it. I mean, it might be a little uncomfortable, but I mean, like, I've been doing it for like well over a year now, and I'm totally fine with it, So I don't understand how it's like, so uncomfortable or anything like that. And I get people have rights. It's absolutely everybody's right to do as they feel, but I just don't see it as being that big of an issue. So moving forward, I want people to really take into consideration, just think about this jelly bean analogy and share this video with people that might have a problem with jelly beans. I'm just saying, right? If you don't like jelly beans, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, right? Now, I'll tell you this. Some of those jelly beans I don't like. I don't like the black licorice jelly beans at all. But you know what? I take my chance eating them. But I won't take my chance of getting one of the 200 deadly jelly beans. Out of 100,000 jelly beans, I'm not going to roll the dice of possibly getting one of those 200 deadly jelly beans. And neither should you.